Please help me welcome Milt McLain.
Well, thanks for coming, everybody. I'm Milton McLain. I own McLain Greenhouses out in Estancia for 43 years. And we provided annuals, perennials, vegetables, hanging baskets to nurseries and landscapers in the state of New Mexico. I retired a couple of years ago, and now I live in Albuquerque, and I'm having to learn how to grow all over again, because this is different. But there are some constants in anything you do when it comes to growing. And what we're going to talk about today was titled Hanging Baskets, but it applies to container gardening. Same principles. So you get a bigger take home today. The most important thing that I have found out is location. Just like real estate. Location, location, location. I lived in Estancia. We're at a little over 6,000 feet. Warm days, cool nights, beautiful growing weather. I moved down to Los Ranchos, and I found out what hot really means. So that's what I'm talking about is location. If you buy a hanging basket here and take it and put it on the west side of your property, get that afternoon sun, you might as well get ready to buy another one. It's almost impossible if you're in full sun, west side. So that's why you need to think, look at your property. Do you have trees, filtered shade, neighbors' trees? Or if you're on Rio Rancho, probably not much at all. And that'll dictate your plant choice for your baskets. Most baskets you buy here or wherever going to be in a plastic container about like this. This is what they consider a 10-inch. It's kind of the industry standard. They do make a 12-inch. That's as large as they get in plastic because the weight becomes an issue. And then they generally go to something like this. I have a couple of 20-inch baskets that I hang, and let me tell you, when it's planted and full, it takes two people to hang up. It's heavy. So just be aware. Again, if you buy a 10-inch hanging basket, be prepared to water it once a day. Maybe twice if we have another July like we did this year. You're going to have to fertilize it at least once a week because you're constantly washing out the nutrients. So it's a lot of work. And just between you and me, I don't really like hanging baskets. They're too darn much work. Unless you get a big one like I'm talking about, that I water every other day, and it's just fine. Generally on hanging baskets, I recommend you take them with the thought being you're going to take it out when you get home, put it in a container. Your container's done. You're ready to go. And one of the things we need to consider is soil. Generally speaking, you get what you pay for. And for heaven's sake, don't go out in the backyard and dig up some of our soil and throw it in a basket. Guaranteed failure. Richard recommends this product, Fox Farms. It's got a starter nutrient charge in it, which is excellent. And like I say, it's not cheap, but whether you're doing a container or a basket, absolutely pay a little more money than you would think. It'll be worth it in the long run. One of the things I do is I use this product called Soil Moist. This is a polymer that absorbs water, and it'll help balance out those drying and watering, drying, watering. Instead of being steep curves, it'll tend to balance it out a little bit. I didn't see that. This is what the gel looks like. It's kind of a white, little granular type of material. You add water and you get that. This and this were the same before I added water. It expands probably 10 to 15 times. The roots of your plants will attach to it, and they will be able to draw the water from here. A word of caution: a little bit is good, a lot is bad. I found that out. I had polymers in those big baskets, and one side wasn't growing as well as the other. So I finally took it down and dug into the soil. Well, some of those polymers had expanded to the size of my fingernail. It was a swamp on one side of my basket. So be careful with this. You'll add this to your potting soil when you're ready to plant, or you could add it to a pre-existing container. Mix it up, water it in, and wait 24 hours. Because if you have your pot full of soil to the top, about that much is going to get pushed out of the top. So it's a great product, but use it per directions. Very important. Fertilizers. Richard has a really good one here. It's a 15-30-15. We like acidic based fertilizers just because our soils are alkaline, our water is alkaline, and all you need to know about that is not really the chemistry. It's just the fact that alkaline water will tie up trace minerals in your fertilizer. It'll make them unavailable to the plant. So that's why we like this. This is made locally in Portales. They have a great lawn fertilizer also. And whether it be a container plant or a basket, I recommend once a week. You can buy some fertilizers off the shelf. I wouldn't do it if I was you, but this is good stuff. It's competitively priced. This little container will go a really long ways. Dilution instructions. Again, always read the label. A little is good, a lot is bad, and you should have good success. You always want a fertilizer with the middle number higher. That's phosphorus. That aids in blooming. You can use a general purpose 20-20-20 or 10-10-10. This is better. If you water something a lot, you'll probably see some yellowing of the foliage at some point in time. Again, that's a lack of iron. You see it in trees, you see it in lawns. This is New Mexico. Iron chelate. Use it about once a month. Real easy to use. Will activate quickly within your plant. Should see the results within 5 or 6 days. Works pretty fast. Again, not expensive for what you get. The only caveat on this is some people have told me it will stain concrete. I have not found that to be so, but buyer beware.
And what does that do other than prevent yellowing?
It is strictly a micronutrient. It's high in iron. It supplements the iron that's being tied up. A chelate is chemically, I don't know the detailed explanation, but it makes it readily available. You can buy just regular iron. Don't. Make sure it's chelated. And on your containers, I think we talked a little bit about that. You've got all sorts of options. Uh, if you're going to plant a basket, say you already have baskets, you want to plant quality potting soil, you can use a time release fertilizer. It's a good idea because when you're watering, a little bit of that time release fertilizer will get out there. I like to use bigger plants when I'm potting because I don't want to wait. I'm impatient. I want it to look beautiful next day. So that's why I use bigger versus, say, a 6-pack. Something like this, I would use probably 4 plants. You don't need to jam them in, but I want it to be full right away. Whether you're growing a basket or a container, the mantra over the years has been thrillers, fillers, and spillers. I'm sure you've heard that many times. The thrillers is something with height in the middle. Fillers goes around it. Spillers is something that trails. I've found as far as trailing, Vinca vine works really well. Thumbergia, black-eyed Susan, that'll trail like crazy on you. And you also could use a plant called dichondra, a silvery leafed trailing plant. Leaves are about the size of a fingernail, and it has almost a glistening foliage to it, but really attractive.
What was the name of it again?
It's called dichondra, Dichondra. The most common variety is called Silver Falls.
Is that the same as the grass?
Nope, nope, totally different. They're annuals. With the exception of the Vinca vine, I've had my Vinca vine over winter. One thing, they're both so aggressive in how they grow. You do want to keep them pinched. And the thought there is instead of one single vine where you pinch, you'll get a multiple grouping of shoots. But on my big baskets, the vines in August had trailed down 6 to 7 feet in one growing season. So it'll grow extremely quickly.
What was the black-eyed Susan?
It's Thumbergia. It's a yellow flower with a brown eye. Richard will have it here. It comes in a little later because it likes heat. Same way with the dichondra. If you plant it too early, it'll just sit there and stare at you. But those 3 things I found work really well. There's another product or plant. You look at it and you swear that's alyssum. No. There's a vegetative one that they have that they've named lobularia. I don't name them. I don't. It looks just like this, but it trails and it will bloom all summer. This will not bloom all summer. This will stop in July. It'll continue once we get into August when the days start getting a little shorter. The heat kind of dissipates. But it comes in a white, a pink, and a lavender for colors. But it is great. I saw lobularia planted out at the Hyatt Tamiya in one of their patios a couple years ago on flagstone, full sun, hotter than blazes the day I was out there. It looked great. It will shed a little bit as it continues to rebloom. Minor inconvenience. Now, if you need inspiration, I spent a little time looking on some websites. There's one called Ball Flora Plant. It's Ball, B-A-L-L, Floraplant. Ball floor plant. Second one is called Proven Winners. You can Google it, it'll pop up immediately. We have a little harder time getting proven winners down here just because some of the growers that we have to deal with don't often carry them, but you can still look at their designs and be inspired because they have shade designs, mixed light, full sun, heat lovers. Sunset Magazine, they have designs. I was surprised. I didn't know that until I looked. And of course, YouTube, you can see anything on YouTube, good, bad, or otherwise. But you can sift through some of the videos and you can find some inspiration there. And also Instagram or Pinterest. So the resources are out there. I can't really tell you what exactly you should plant for your particular location. I can make a couple of recommendations of what not to plant. I would never plant a grandiflora petunia. They get budworms, they stall out in the heat, you have to deadhead them. They have the greatest variety of colors. Got to give them kudos for that. But this needs to be in Santa Fe or Ruidoso. The weather's a whole lot better. If you want a petunia, use the mini petunias. Million bells. Calibraco is the botanical name. They don't seem to be bothered by budworms. I'm not sure why, but I've had them. Didn't seem to be a problem. You don't need to deadhead them. They'll bloom all summer. Really a good plant. If you're looking for something on the west side, or maybe you have a hot spot on the south side, lantana is awesome. You can even use the perennial ice plant if you want something trailing. It'll take the heat, and if you take that basket down in the winter and throw it in your garage, ignore it for 3 or 4 months and bring it out, that ice plant will still be alive and you can replant. Scaevola, or blue fan flower, is another one. Another trailer would be purslane. Scaevola's S-C-A-E-V-O-L-A. Looks like scaviola.
Thank you.
But it has a little light blue to medium blue fan-shaped flower. Comes in a blue, a white, and a pink. The blue is the best. White flowers here, not a big fan of typically, because with our high light they just kind of disappear, unless you live maybe in Nob Hill area where you've got 50-foot trees around and you have an actual shade problem there. Then sure, why not? But you got to realize the breeders, when they're going for colors, don't breed for here. They breed for the Midwest and the South and California. Just a matter of economics. So anyway, check out all those websites. You'll get a lot of good information. Maintenance. We talked about deadheading. Some plant varieties are naturally going to be more vigorous than others. Don't be afraid to get out your scissors and do tip pruning. Not deep, I'm talking tip pruning. That'll trigger the plant to branch. It'll help them create more flowers. It'll look fuller. Same way the trailing things. Definitely pinch those. Insects. You're going to have insects. Everybody has insects. Number one is aphids. Probably the easiest to control. You can take a hose and just blow them off. You don't have to spray. If you do want to use something, they've got a systemic control. It's a pyrethrum. It's about as safe gets. There's a neem oil product, Neem Max. This is actually made from the bark of a neem tree. This one I don't think it says it's organic, but it's about as close as you can get to it. Very, very, very safe. And use it on just about anything. Again, there's a label on here for a reason. Read it. Again, a little is great, a lot is bad.
Do you find that effective, neem oil?
Yes, you have to use it multiple times. It's not a one and done. It's almost every 10 days for probably a month, because it will kill adults, not necessarily eggs. So you have to get those adults killed, let the eggs hatch, kill those, and there may be multiple generations on your plant. Spider mites will be an issue come August. They love the heat, they love the dry. These products will work. The main thing to think about on spider mites is they're on the underside of the leaves. It won't do any good to spray the top of your plant. You've got to get up underneath with your sprayer.
Would a systemic be a good offer then?
Systemic will work great.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
What is good for getting rid of scale?
Dumpster. I'd say that in jest. I grow citrus, dwarf citrus. I have a little greenhouse and sunroom. And if you have citrus, you will have scale. Guaranteed. I don't care if there wasn't anything last year, you'll get it this year. If you can catch it early, the best thing is to go in there and physically smash the bejesus out of them, and then hose the plant down. And you'll know the life stage of a scale based on how hard they are, how hard that shell is. That's the difficulty on scale, is that hard shell prevents insecticides from penetrating. But if you can get it while it's soft, these products will work. I like to physically remove it where possible, hose it down. But if you've got hard shell, scale, you're going to be fighting it for months. There's no quick cure to that. We don't often see it, but we see it more often on shrubs outside. They'll tend to get it, but it's a tough one, to be sure. Those are the basic ones. I've seen mealybugs. You've seen those little white cottony looking fellows. Again, the difficulty is catching them at the right life cycle so your sprays will be effective. Again, try and remove them when you can. You can take a Q-tip and dip it in a little rubbing alcohol and wipe them off that way. Very time consuming, but it's effective. And on those also, you'll be able to tell the life cycle or stage by how hard they are. Again, that waxy coating they have on them, doggone, that's hard to control, really hard. That's about all I have. Do you have questions on anything? Anything related to growing in general? Like I say, I was a grower for 40 some years, so I generally encountered everything.
That's okay.
How is this product, this enchanted product, different from Bloom Max?
Okay, the question is, How does this differ from
Blue Max.
Blue Max?
Here also.
Blue Max is also very good. I like this because it's made here in Portales, and the people there understand our problems. They're equally as good. I would stick away from anything generic.
Like Miracle Grow.
Yes. I'm not a big fan of Miracle Grow. I've tried it. It's better than nothing. Maybe.
So even the Miracle Grow potting soil, you're not a fan of?
The potting soil is fine. I just don't care for their fertilizers.
Okay.
Here, we need to go back here.
How about those horrible, ugly tomato worms?
Tomato worms. Buy yourself a blue light. Go out after dark. They will show up like a Roman candle. And then you can either take them and throw them over in your neighbor's yard. But manually is the best. They're generally, you'll find them on your tomatoes first, obviously. I don't like to spray vegetables with anything, but the blue light thing works. You can get a blue light flashlight for $7, $8 on Amazon. I did that, and it really works because you have a hard time spotting them until the damage is already done. Don't wait for that. Just go out once a week and kind of, if you've got one, you'll know it immediately. Yep. True. True. It's they're one that's you do get a perverse pleasure from. Yes, I understand.
What about grubs in the soil?
Grubs in soil. Generally, I have not seen a problem with grubs unless you used soil from a field or if you bought in some compost. I don't want to knock any local purveyors of soils or compost, but a bag of soil like this, you'll never have grubs. A systemic fertilizer would work if you have that problem. When we're talking about, let's say, container plants, and you've got a pot this tall, and you don't want to spend $75 to fill it with potting soil, don't. Milk jugs, throw on the bottom. If you have branches from your yard, cut them up, throw them in the bottom. I don't like bark because bark will pull the nitrogen out of your soil as part of the decomposition process. You can use it, just know you'll have to fertilize a little heavier. And then go 50-50. 50% and then 50% of the premium stuff. And you do not have to change out every year. Your potting soil in the natural process of growing and decomposing, that pot, the soil level will shrink. It's normal. Just buy a bag of this. Or even better, buy some back to earth. It's a compost. It's acidic. Mix that in. It's awesome stuff.
Well, you just answered my question too, except for, so in the big pots, filling it in, what would you use for the filler in between all of the sticks, and what about chicken manure?
Okay, chicken manure is excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, as long as it's got some age to it, absolutely.
Any other manure too? Horse manure, chicken?
All of it will be fine.
Okay. That would be bottom.
Um,
Mix it in with that stuff?
I would mix it in with my actual potting soils.
Okay.
I wouldn't put in a layer of manure. Your roots would probably freak out.
Yeah.
But again, if you have a composter bin, your leaves from the fall, save them, use those. I'm experimenting with raised bed gardening. Got metal U-shaped containers about 30 inches tall. Well, good heavens, if I filled those up, I'd have to take out a mortgage. And again, I used a lot of sticks, a lot of grass clippings, leaf. I even cheated a little bit. I went down to the container store and bought a couple of containers, plastic containers, put them at the very bottom.
Yes, I've done it.
Most of your vegetables, your roots aren't going to get that far down. So I'll let you know how that works. It could be a terrible wreck. But that's fun. I'm trying things. There is a company in town, if you need bulk soils or compost, called Soillutions. If you buy 2 cubic yards, they will deliver. Now 2 cubic yards seems like a lot, but not really. Not really. And they have various blends. Buy the most expensive. Me being a cheap fella, I didn't. I paid for it. The mix that I used was just too heavy. The plants had a hard time getting down into it. And plus, it was just heavier and all get out trying to deal with. So they are good, you just need to know what your application is. If you're using it in your garden soil, you don't have to buy the most expensive. You just have to get it turned in. Rototill, whatever. Our soils out here are typically really crappy. I live in Los Ranchos and it's clay. You get 2/10 of an inch of moisture and you're slipping and sliding and you've got mud caked on your feet about like that. The west side is sand. The heights is decomposed granite. It's just what it is. And a lot of people will suggest using peat moss. The problem with peat moss is it does what it's supposed to really, really well. It absorbs moisture. It'll take moisture away from your plant. Now, we used it in a greenhouse production as a commercial blend, and it works great because we were growing in little pots, and for a short period of time, the plants never got terribly root bound. We could get them in and out. But in your setting, it'd be better to use composted material. It'd be cheaper for one thing. Peat moss has gotten really expensive. It's like most things, global warming has affected the peat bogs in Canada. They're having a hard time harvesting. And they're doing a great job because peat bogs are renewable. They will regenerate. It's just going to take 20 or 30 years. So they're trying to find other alternatives for potting soil. There's a product called Core. It's COIR. It's made from the husks of coconuts. It's an idea. You have to really know how to grow with it. It's difficult, I think, in my opinion. But if you see that advertised, you go ahead and try it. Try it in small doses. I think it's better for the ground application versus a container. That's just my opinion. Yes.
In those raised beds. In the raised beds for your vegetables, we have like 8 raised beds. My husband's handicapped. Would you annually add soil moist to them every
No.
year? Not at all.
No.
One time and that's it?
I would say okay, let me back up. The best way to know is get in there and start digging around with your hands. And you'll find it already because you'll stick your hand in there and you'll find it'll be slimy.
Okay.
And you'll go, that's what it is.
Okay.
Generally speaking, every 2 to 3,
Okay.
probably.
Good. Thanks.
Back to the pests.
Mhm.
Squash bugs. Is there a way to prevent?
Yeah, don't
Early
grow
on.
squash.
I know. Cucumber. None of.
Well, I say that facetiously, obviously. You're going to have them. I've heard planting squash later in the season. You avoid that first onset. So don't plant squash in June, plant it in July. You'll still get more squash than you can possibly need. You're just going to have to spray or be dedicated, get a set of knee pads, and go out there and look under every leaf. Because even if you spray, it's the kinder, gentler insecticides won't do a whole lot. You have to use something much more powerful. As a grower in a greenhouse, I was a licensed pesticide applicator, and I'd had training on the hows and the do's and the don'ts. And we had a complete tool chest of things we could use that you cannot use. So it made a believer out of me being as gentle as possible using insecticides or pesticides. Squash bugs are a problem, and there's no easy answer.
No answer.
Nope.
Buy your squash.
Oh, bye.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah, 'cause I've tried.
Yes.
Do you have any tips about planting in different kind of containers? Like I have some really cute containers that are wide, but they're really shallow towards the middle. And so I've tried planting, putting the plants in at an angle so the root ball is towards the middle. And that never works out right. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was the hanging baskets. They always seem to have kind of a filter or a mesh in those. Do you leave that in? Or does that?
Like that?
Yep. That's it.
Absolutely, positively use this.
Okay.
And so it creates a water reservoir in the bottom of your pot. Definitely works. I've tried it many times, both ways. Well, yeah, works great. Shallow container. Yeah, that's not going to work. I'm going to tell you, I appreciate your drive and determination. What I would suggest is succulents,
Yeah.
or even cacti. They will work beautifully in a container like that. But otherwise, no.
What about containers without drainage holes?
Nope. Don't like 'em.
Wall
Don't like 'em.
containers.
I mean, how do you know how much is enough and how much is not enough? You'd have to have a moisture sensor. I'm sure if Amazon will sell you one, a Bluetooth one that'll go to your Apple product, and alert you. I would not use a container unless I had something like that to let you know. These probes you stick in, you can buy. Not a fan of those. They're not accurate enough. They give you false readings. So that moisture probe, I know they're out there. If you're really bound and determined, use them. But otherwise, you run into so many problems on too wet, too dry, that vicious cycle. It's hard on the roots. If you're fertilizing, you're getting an accumulation of the fertilizer. These are all salts, a type of salt. Occurs naturally in nature. You get an accumulation of those. You want some drainage there to prevent a salt buildup, because the salts will burn roots. So if you have a way of making a hole, if you have a porcelain, ceramic, I'd buy a mason or a drill bit and punch a hole. I know you hate to do that to something you really, really like, but you're just making it a whole lot harder than you really need to, is what I think. So.
So is the oh, do I need it? So is sorry. So I do have some big pots.
Yeah.
So I don't have to empty and redo.
Yeah.
Good, because I don't like to do that. I don't
Yeah.
do that. So just once a year then at the beginning of the season,
Yep.
just throw some back to earth in.
Yeah,
Mix
you
it
can
in.
use back to earth. You can buy a bag of manure, both of them, stir it up real good. You probably will have some leftover roots, so it may be pretty compacted. And get a sharp trowel, shovel, and break those up. You know, you can get them out, and you'll get a big chunk like that, and you can see all of the roots from last year's growth. Just crumble that up, put it back in the pot. But absolutely, you do not need to replace the soil every year. There may come a point in time, 5-6 years down the road, where you're finding that has deteriorated to the point of where it's super hard. Then you would have to redo. But I'd be surprised if it was earlier than 5 or 6 years. Again, it depends on what you plant and how vigorous the root systems are. Most of the annuals that we plant, their root systems are only about like that. Now, if you stick a perennial in there or a grass, which I love to do, purple fountain grass is one of my favorites. Rapidly growing, beautiful texture. Now, their roots will go down fairly deeply. If you use some of the other grasses, I would not use stipagrass or feathergrass. It reseeds too vigorously. You see it all over town, but believe you me, if you have it in one pot next year, it's everywhere. But that works well. Another plant for height I like is Dracaena spikes. They grow rapidly.
What is it?
Dracaena. It's an annual. For height in a container or pot, I like salvias. They come in red, pink, and blue. I like agastache, hummingbird mint plants. They come in pinks and oranges and roses. Another nice plant. They may or may not overwinter, kind of depends. Salvias definitely will. But that way you don't have to replant your pot completely every year. I actually did a Dracaena spike in my baskets. And it'll grow up through the hanger, you know, and kind of disguise the hanger very easily. Now, they also annuals, but rapidly growing. Yes, ma'am. Right behind you.
I have a lot of the bag planters
Yes.
and several other things, and the green stalks. And I tested my soil, and it's all alkaline. How do I change that?
How alkaline was your soil?
All the way to the left, all the way.
Iron chelate would help just by itself. In our greenhouse situation, we had the same problem. We used a measure of alkalinity in parts per million, and it was so bad we were having all sorts of yellowing in our plant material. So we used acid. We used sulfuric acid because it was cheap. It's also dangerous as all get out. Don't use it. But we were prepared to handle it. We knew how to. If in a small situation like what you've got, use vinegar. It's a very mild acid. I would, in a gallon of water, I would put probably 4 ounces of vinegar in a gallon of water. That'll help. Citric acid, if you can get a hold of it, will also work. It's also very safe. But everybody has vinegar.
Can you use pine needles as a mulch?
It's great. Pine needles is a mulch, absolutely. The soil underneath a pine tree, absolutely. Good composted soil. Pine needles are acidic.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, if you have access to it, definitely.
Bags of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll work. Anybody else? Yes.
I've been told to use sulfur,
Sulfur works. Yep.
and you just
You can. Richard should have some here. You can buy just elemental sulfur. You can buy it on Amazon. I have. I'm not promoting Amazon, but good Lord, they got everything. And use it. Again, you would get a gallon of water and look at the label, and it'll be a teaspoon or a couple teaspoons. Works great. Works great for your lawns. And it's nice because it won't burn. But yeah, it'll work.
is that better than the vinegar, or is it?
I would say it's optional. Either one will work.
And do I mix it in? I use I make my own dirt. And mix it in when you're planting, and then mix it later as
Since your soils, you say, were already alkaline, do it prior to planting. And then probably once a month during the growing season.
into the soil.
Yeah. Yeah, growing is difficult here. I was born and raised in Nebraska. You throw seeds out the back door and they're sprouted the next day. Beautiful black dirt. What a shock when I moved down here. Trust me. I feel for you. I know how difficult it is. But we can do it. I mean, we have the resources. And like you say, I believe in this. Yes.
What do you think of worm castings?
Worm castings. Yes, very good. Very good organic. Anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, good stuff. You know, it's basically a composted product. You got manure, organic matter, also sulfur. Good stuff.
Do you know if it's alkaline or acidic?
It would be acidic.
Acidic?
Like the water? Okay, there's
Yep.
right here.
So you see there are options out there. If you have more questions during the growing season, come to Jericho. They know what they're doing. They can point you in the right direction, save you a lot of time and a lot of money.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You bet.